For 2 millennia, the idea of rebuilding the Third Temple in Jerusalem has lingered as a distant prophecy, a sacred promise rooted in Jewish tradition and biblical scripture. Today, that prophecy is no longer a mere whisper of hope, it is becoming a tangible reality. Many believe the construction of the Third Temple is not just a religious milestone, but a pivotal sign of the end times, a moment that could reshape the spiritual and geopolitical landscape of the world. This article delves into the 10 specific preparations that have been completed for the Third Temple, revealing how close we are to this monumental event. By the time we reach the 10th preparation, you will understand why this is not merely a religious story, but a global phenomenon with far-reaching implications. Let's explore these preparations and the obstacles standing in their way, starting with a development that has sent shockwaves through prophetic circles. Preparation 1, the arrival of the perfect red heifers. Imagine a moment so significant that it could signal the final steps toward fulfilling a 2,000-year-old prophecy. In September 22, 5 perfect red heifers were flown from Texas to Israel, a development that has electrified those who follow biblical prophecy. These heifers are not ordinary cattle. They are the key to a mysterious ritual described in the Bible, one that has not been performed since the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD. According to Numbers 19:2, a red heifer without spot, blemish, or yoke is required for a purification ritual. The ashes of this heifer are essential to cleanse Jewish priests, enabling them to perform temple worship. Without the red heifer, the temple cannot function. These 5 heifers were raised under stringent rabbinical supervision in Texas, where they were meticulously examined to ensure they met the biblical criteria. A single non-red hair or minor imperfection would disqualify them. After passing rigorous inspections, they were transported to Israel, where their arrival was celebrated with dancing and joy by those who understand the prophetic weight of this moment. The book of Daniel speaks of a time when the sanctuary shall be cleansed, Daniel 8:14, and the red heifer is a critical step toward that cleansing. Why now? Why these heifers? Their arrival signals that the Third Temple is closer than ever before. The Temple Institute, a Jerusalem-based organization dedicated to preparing for the temple's reconstruction, has announced plans to perform the red heifer ceremony before Passover in the coming year. This ceremony, expected to take place on the Mount of Olives, will involve selecting one heifer for sacrifice. Its ashes will be mixed and stored, ready to purify the priests in the temple site. This is not a distant dream, it is a plan set to unfold within months. The implications are staggering. According to 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4, the Antichrist will one day sit in the temple proclaiming himself as God. But for this to happen, the temple must first be built, and for the temple to be built, the red heifer must be sacrificed. The arrival of these heifers is a tangible step toward that reality, a moment when prophecy begins to take physical form. But the red heifers are just the beginning. Other preparations equally astonishing have been quietly advancing. Preparation 2, the recreation of sacred temple vessels. While the world has been distracted by global events, master craftsmen in Jerusalem have been working tirelessly to recreate the sacred vessels needed for temple worship. These are not mere replicas for display, but functional items crafted to exact biblical specifications, untouched by modern hands since the Second Temple's destruction in 70 AD. The Temple Institute has overseen the creation of over 60 sacred vessels, each one a testament to the precision and devotion required to fulfill ancient prophecy. Among these is the golden menorah, a 7-branched candelabrum weighing 95 pounds, and crafted from pure gold valued at over $2 million. This menorah is not a museum piece, it is designed for use in the Third Temple, ready to illuminate the holy space as it did in ancient times. The Institute has also recreated incense vessels for burning the precise spices mentioned in Exodus, measuring cups calibrated to biblical standards, and silver trumpets capable of producing the exact tones described in Numbers. Each item represents years of research, craftsmanship, and significant financial investment. Why spend millions of dollars on functional temple vessels if there is no intention to use them? The answer is clear. These preparations are not theoretical. They are part of a deliberate plan to restore temple worship. The vessels are ready, waiting for the day when the Third Temple rises and they can be placed in their rightful positions. But objects alone are not enough. Who will use these vessels? Who will perform the sacred rituals that brings us to the next preparation? one that will leave you astounded. Preparation 3, the priestly training program. For the first time in 2,000 years, Jewish men from the priestly tribe of Levi are being trained to perform temple services, reviving knowledge and practices lost since the Roman destruction of Jerusalem. This is a moment of profound significance, a restoration of traditions that have been dormant for 70 generations. The Temple Institute established a field school in Mitzpe, Jericho, just 20 minutes from Jerusalem, where Kohanim priests and Levites undergo rigorous training to master every aspect of temple worship. These men are learning rituals that their ancestors could only dream of performing, from the daily offerings to the intricate ceremonies of major festivals. In 2015, they achieved a historic milestone, the first accurate reenactment of the Korban Pesach, the Passover offering, in 2 millennia. This was not a symbolic gesture, but a precise recreation of the biblical ritual performed with authenticity and reverence. Watching these trainees is like witnessing history come alive as modern men step into roles ordained thousands of years ago. The training program is comprehensive, covering everything from the proper handling of sacred vessels to the precise methods of sacrifice. The priests are being prepared not just for a theoretical future, but for a time when the temple will stand again. This preparation raises a critical question: if the priests are ready, what about the temple itself? The answer lies in the next preparation, which will leave no doubt about the seriousness of this endeavor. Preparation. Architectural blueprints for the Third Temple. The Temple Institute has not only dreamed of the Third Temple, they have planned it down to the smallest detail. What you are looking at are not conceptual sketches, but operational blueprints designed to modern construction standards and ready for immediate implementation. These plans are so precise that they include electrical systems, plumbing, heating, and ventilation, ensuring the temple would function as a modern operational building while adhering to biblical descriptions. To bring this vision to life, the Institute has created a 150 scale model of the Third Temple, exact in every detail. This model, measuring 150 meters by 150 meters in the actual plans, is set to be displayed at a new visitor center in Jerusalem opening in 2025. Visitors can walk through a virtual temple, seeing the chamber for the Sanhedrin, the court of the priests, the altar of sacrifice, and the Holy of Holies. Every measurement aligns with biblical texts, ensuring that the temple would fulfill both spiritual and architectural requirements. These blueprints are more than a religious exercise, they are a practical roadmap for construction. The level of detail and the incorporation of modern building codes demonstrate a commitment to making the Third Temple a reality. But blueprints are just the beginning. What about the physical materials needed to build the temple? That brings us to a preparation that will change how you view this story. Preparation 5, the high priest's garments. For over a decade, artisans have been working to recreate the garments of the Jewish high priest, designed according to the exact specifications in Exodus 28. These garments, now complete, are ready to be worn, representing the fulfillment of a 2,000-year-old dream. Every thread, every gemstone, and every detail has been meticulously researched to ensure authenticity. The breastplate of the high priest, adorned with 12 precious stones, each engraved with the name of one of the 12 tribes of Israel, includes real sapphires, emeralds, and diamonds. The gold work alone took master craftsmen over 2 years to complete. These garments are not mere costumes. They are sacred vestments meant for use in temple worship. Their completion raises a pressing question: who will wear them? According to biblical law, only one man can serve as high priest at a time, and the selection process for this role is already under discussion. The existence of these garments is a powerful statement of intent, a sign that the temple's restoration is not a distant hope, but an imminent possibility. But what about the physical foundation of the temple itself? That brings us to a preparation that will leave you speechless. Preparation. Altar stones collected. In 2010, representatives from the Temple Institute traveled to the Dead Sea, the lowest point on earth, to collect stones for the altar of the Third Temple. These are not ordinary stones. They are untouched by metal tools as required by Deuteronomy 27:5. Build there an altar to the Lord your God, an altar of stones. Do not use any iron tool on them. Formed by natural geological processes and gathered by hand, these stones meet the biblical criteria for temple construction. Imagine the moment when these stones were collected workers standing in a place where Moses himself might have stood, selecting stones according to laws given 3,500 years ago. These stones are a physical link to the past and a foundation for the future waiting to be placed in the altar of the third temple. Their collection is a bold declaration that the temple is not just a dream, but a project ready to move forward. But who will govern this temple? That brings us to a preparation that will expand your understanding of this story. Preparation 7, the Sanhedrin Chamber Design. The Sanhedrin, the supreme religious authority that once governed Jewish life, has been reconstituted in modern times and is actively planning for the Third Temple. The Temple Institute has designed a grand chamber for the Sanhedrin, inspired by the Chamber of Hewn Stone in Herod's Temple. This assembly hall with circular seating for 71 members and a central fountain is intended to be a space for religious deliberation and governance of temple operations. This design is not theoretical, it is part of a broader effort to restore the institutions that will oversee the temple. The reconstituted Sanhedrin is already meeting, discussing everything from priestly roles to the logistics of temple worship. Their work is a reminder that the Third Temple is not just a building, but a system of worship governance and tradition. But what about the sensory elements of the temple that brings us to a preparation that revives an ancient tradition? Preparation. The Levitical choir established music was an integral part of temple worship in ancient times, and the Temple Institute has revived this tradition through the Levitical choir. Composed of Levites trained in the musical traditions described in the Bible, the choir performs the exact melodies and psalms that accompanied temple sacrifices. In recent years, during the intermediate days of Sukkot, the choir performed Psalm 27 at the southern wall of the Temple Mount, joined by dozens of other musical Levites in a celebration that echoed the past. This is not just a performance. It is a restoration of a sacred practice that has been silent for 2,000 years. The choir's music is a reminder of the temple's role as a place of beauty worship in connection to God. But what about the visual elements of the temple that brings us to a scientific breakthrough that has stunned researchers and religious scholars alike? Preparation 9, the rediscovery of the crimson dye. For 2,000 years, the secret of producing the crimson dye mentioned in the Bible was lost. This dye, known as tola shani, was essential for the high priest's garments, the curtains separating the Holy of Holies and the mixture combined with the ashes of the red heifer. Professor Zohar Amar, a researcher specializing in biblical materials, rediscovered the process for creating this dye using ancient techniques and fragmentary historical sources. The dye is produced from the eggs of a specific worm, processed to yield the exact shade of crimson described in Exodus. This rediscovery is a triumph of scholarship and faith, restoring a color that adorned Solomon's temple and will now adorn the Third Temple. The crimson dye is more than decorative, it is a biblical requirement, and its return marks another step toward the temple's restoration. But all these preparations, heifers, vessels, priests, blueprints, garments, stones, chambers, choirs, and dyes, culminate in a final element that has drawn the attention of governments worldwide. Preparation 10. Political momentum building. For decades, Jewish access to the Temple Mount was heavily restricted. After Israel captured the site in 1967, only a handful of Jews could ascend, and prayer was forbidden. Today, the situation is changing rapidly. Tens of thousands of Jews now visit the Temple Mount annually, openly praying, singing, and worshiping. This shift represents a growing political and cultural momentum toward restoring Jewish access and worship at the site. Temple Mount activists argue that this trend is unstoppable, driven by a combination of religious fervor and political support. Jewish politicians in Israel's Knesset have begun to publicly advocate for rebuilding the temple, a stance that was once considered fringe. This political momentum is a critical preparation as it signals a shift in the national conversation about the temple's future. But with all these preparations in place, why hasn't the Third Temple been built? The answer lies in the formidable obstacles standing in the way. Obstacles to rebuilding the Third Temple. Despite the remarkable progress, several barriers, political, religious, and spiritual, prevent the immediate construction of the Third Temple. These obstacles are as complex as the preparations themselves, and their resolution will determine when and how the temple rises. Obstacle 1, the Dome of the Rock. The most significant barrier is the Dome of the Rock, an Islamic shrine built in 691 AD, on the exact spot where the First and Second Temples once stood. This site, known as the Temple Mount to Jews and the Haram al-Sharif to Muslims, is one of the holiest places in Islam. Any attempt to build a Jewish temple there would provoke widespread protest, violence, and potentially war. The Dome of the Rock has stood for over 300 years, and its presence is a physical and symbolic obstacle to the temple's construction. Prophecy suggests that something must change, whether through diplomacy, conflict, or divine intervention, for the temple to rise. Obstacle 2, political pressure. The political ramifications of rebuilding the temple are immense. Israel faces constant scrutiny from the international community, and any move toward temple construction would likely be condemned by the United Nations and provoke outrage in the Arab world. Most Israeli leaders avoid the issue, wary of sparking global chaos. However, some politicians are beginning to speak out, and the growing support for temple advocacy suggests that political dynamics are shifting. Prophecy may not wait for political consensus, it may thrive in crisis. Obstacle 3, division among Jews. Not all Jews agree on rebuilding the temple. Ultra-Orthodox Jews, secular Jews, and even some religious leaders are divided. Some believe the temple should only be rebuilt by the Messiah, while others see it as a present-day imperative. This internal conflict weakens the movement, as unity is essential for such a monumental undertaking. A single event, an attack, a miracle, or a diplomatic breakthrough could unify the Jewish people and propel the project forward. Obstacle 4, global religious tension. The Third Temple is not just a Jewish issue, it affects Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. For Muslims, it is a threat to their sacred sites. For Jews, it is the fulfillment of prophecy. For Christians, it is a sign of the end times, as described in Revelation 11. Rise and measure the temple of God. The temple's construction would send shock waves through all three faiths, making it one of the most controversial issues in the world. Religious leaders are watching, closely aware that the temple's rise could redefine global faith dynamics. Obstacle 5, spiritual warfare. Beyond politics and religion, the temple's reconstruction is a spiritual battle. The Bible describes the temple as a place where God's presence once dwelled, and its restoration would have profound spiritual implications. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness in high places. The forces opposing the temple's construction are not merely human, they are spiritual, seeking to delay or prevent the fulfillment of prophecy. Yet resistance often precedes breakthrough, and the temple's rise could mark the beginning of a new spiritual era. The future of the Third Temple. Imagine a future where these obstacles are overcome. The Dome of the Rock is removed or bypassed through a historic agreement. Political will aligns, and the Jewish people unite in their resolve. The temple begins to rise stone by stone as priests don their sacred garments and prepare to resume sacrifices. The world watches, some in awe, others in fear, as prophecy unfolds before their eyes. The Third Temple's construction would be a moment of celebration for those who have awaited it for centuries, but it would also ignite conflict. The temple is not just a building, it is a battleground of faith, a symbol of divine promise, and a trigger for global change. According to prophecy, its rise will set the stage for the return of the Messiah, a moment that will confront the world with the reality of God's plan. The 10 preparations outlined here, the red heifers, sacred vessels, priestly training, blueprints, high priest garments, altar stones, Sanhedrin chamber, Levitical choir, crimson dye, and political momentum are not isolated efforts. They are part of a coordinated movement to restore the temple and fulfill prophecy. With 4 qualified red heifers, ready vessels complete, priests trained, and political support growing, the question is not if the temple will be built, but when. As we stand on the cusp of this historic moment, the world is watching. Intelligence agencies, religious leaders, and believers of all faiths are asking the same question: what will happen when the red heifer is sacrificed and the Third Temple rises? The answer lies in the pages of Scripture and the unfolding of history. One thing is certain: when the temple returns, it will change everything.